Chapter 19. Mission. The gigantic door opened, and they were blinded by the spotlight. They were welcomed by thundering applause as they ascended down the stairs. They bowed before taking the last step. King Eadric met them at the last step. He shook hands with Sebastian and kissed Bethany's hand.
Welcome, Bethany, Sebastian. I hope you will enjoy the ball, as this is a ball dedicated to you.
There it was again, the weird smile he sent to Bethany. It was like a mixture of nostalgic and something else.
We will. Thank you for arranging this for us.
Sebastian said and bowed. King Eadric looked away from Bethany and smiled at Sebastian.
Your father's a great friend of mine. Finding out that his youngest children is still alive is a miracle.
They exchanged a smile before King Eadric addressed the guests.
Dear guests, thank you all for coming to my ball. As you all know, this ball is dedicated to the missing prince and princess of the Red Wolf Pack. It was a grave time when Stephen and Veronica, the late king and queen of the Red Wolf Pack, passed away, and their twin children lost and assumed dead by many. But today we celebrate the return of the prince and princess. Celebrate that they returned safely and healthy to us.
He took the champagne offered to him and raised it high.
Cheers! Cheers! How about one of you give a small speech too?
King Eadric asked. Bethany smiled and nodded. She took a step forward and cleared her throat. Thank you all for coming tonight to this ball, and I hope you all enjoy your night. She bowed. The guest clapped and Bethany smiled.
You two enjoy your night. I'll be right over there with my wife.
True to his words, Queen Kiana, who was stunning as ever, stood with Sabina, who now wore the proper attire for her status, unlike the maid dress like last time. Sabina saw her and waved. Bethany smiled her real smile for the first time tonight as she waved back.
Excuse me then.
King Eadric said as he bowed. Immediately after he left, they were swarmed with other noble werewolves, trying to get some bits of information from the assumed missing twins of the late king and queen of the Red Wolf Pack. Where's King Grayson? Did he not come with you? A distant cousin of King Eadric asked. Bethany smiled kindly. He had royal pack duties to do, so he can't make it. The lady deflated with a quiet, oh. They all conversed for a while before their in-ear crackled to life.
Got it. Yo, cousins, you hear me?
Sebastian cut off a man who Bethany was conversed with, a man who's also been staring at Bethany with lustful eyes for the past 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, but my sister and I haven't eaten and we're famished, if you'll kindly excuse us.
Sebastian said and smiled flirtatiously to the ladies before pulling Bethany away to the food table. The ladies moved away easily, dazed by Sebastian's smile. Thanks for that, Bethany said as she touched her in-ear, pretending to scratch her ear. Yes, Joseph, we hear you. Joseph sighed.
I was actually started to think that it didn't work.
Joseph's voice came out smoothly, unlike just now.
Okay, there's a door 10 steps away from you. That will lead you straight to the main hallway. Gotcha,
Sebastian whispered. They stood by the food table for a while to not make it look suspicious. They didn't eat anything, though, although it looks delicious, but they're in an enemy's territory. Who knew what they did to the food? After a while, they slipped out one by one. Like Joseph said, they're back at the main hallway with not guards looking out. Okay, you take the east wing and I'll take the west, Bethany said. Sebastian nodded. They grinned and fist-bumped before they were off. But little did they know, their every moves were being watched. Bethany had been looking through most of the room in the west wing, but still came out empty-handed. She sighed as she crept out of the room she had been looking through, but then she heard muffled voices. She picked up her dress and walked silently closer to the room where the voices was coming from, even though she was wearing heels. She leaned on the door and looked through the gap from where the other door had been left ajar. The room was dark and was lit with only a candle. So with that, Bethany only saw 2 silhouettes, a man and a woman, with their back facing the door.
You sure this is going to work?
The man asked. Trust me, it will work, the woman said. Then she took a step forward closer to the man, hence closer to the light, and Bethany had to held in a growl when she saw the woman's face. It was Lady from that day, the one that made Queen Kiana flinched. If that delicate pale face didn't expose her identity, then the tang smell of iron did.
How can you be so sure? They survived once.
And we'll make sure they didn't the second time, the woman purred with a smirk. Then she pulled out a vial filled with violet-colored liquid.
That's...
The man gasped. The woman smirked again. Wolfsbane, she said as she passed it to the man.
Where did you obtain it?
The man examined the vial in his hands gingerly. The vamps had a ton in their lab, the woman said as she plopped down on an armchair.
I hope you know what you're doing, Analea. This will kill every single one of the werewolves gathered in that ballroom.
Anelia smirked as she stood up silently. She grabbed the vial from the man and pocketed it. Of course, if that finally convinces you, then I shall be going. Bethany quickly hid in the opposite room and closed the door behind her silently, just as Anelia walked out. Bethany listened to their footsteps. The first footsteps was heard. It was barely audible, but it was there, and it was heading to the east wing. After a while, another, more heavy footstep joined, but it went opposite the former footstep, and the distinct thumping sound of the footsteps going down the stairs was heard, probably joining the rest in the ballroom. After the coast is clear, Bethany silently opened the door and walked away, following the lighter footsteps. She kept a distance as she stalked Anelia, making sure not to make any noise, as Anelia seems to be no ordinary lady if she's chummy with the vamps. Suddenly, Anelia stopped. Bethany hid behind a golden pillar and observed Anelia. Anelia seemed to be observing a painting of a golden wolf hung on the wall. She reached out and tilted the painting. A whooshing sound was heard as a hidden door beside the painting opened. What was inside made her gasp. If what they said about that small vial of that wolfsbane thingy being very lethal, then everyone in the palace will die with that many vial of wolfsbane kept in the room. Anelia placed the vial into a metal container and closed it. She walked out of the room and tilted the painting back to its original position. Bethany waited until Anelia was far away before walking towards the painting. She then reached out to tilt it, but a hand shot out from behind her and grabbed her wrist. Bethany turned sideways and saw Prince Sakai looking at her with unreadable eyes. Prince Sakai!
It's a nice painting, isn't it?
Prince Sakai cut her off before she could sprout an excuse. Bethany looked at the painting. Maybe. Prince Sakai looked at her with an unreadable eyes again before he released her wrist.
The wolf in the painting is said to be my ancestor, the first gold wolf.
Bethany hummed in confirmation. Bethany glanced at Prince Sakai, but before she could ask him about the room full of wolfsbane, Prince Sakai already beat her.
I don't think I saw you at the ballroom. Will it be fine if I ask for a dance?
Before Bethany could even give her answer, Prince Sakai had already moved and was halfway down the stairs. Prince Sakai had been following Bethany, that's for sure. Bethany looked at the painting, then at Prince Sakai's retreating back before she made her decision. If Prince Sakai had been following her for the whole night, then there must be something that he wanted to say, but don't want to make it suspicious. Bethany placed her hand on her in-ear. Joseph.
Yes?
I need backup. Prince Sakai found me, and I have something to confirm from him. You have to come in and help me on this one. There's a room full of this vial of violet liquid called wolfsbane. Bethany heard Joseph cursed.
Where?
East wing. There's a gold wolf painting hung beside the hidden door. Tilt the painting and the door will reveal itself. There was some clicking before something beeped.
Got your location. Leave it to me.
Counting on you on this, Josh. Bethany smiled at Joseph's speed with technology.
Go get your answer from Mr. Prince. I'll handle it. Over.
Then the line went dead. All right, now Prince Sakai, Bethany thought before following Prince Sakai. Like Bethany before, Sebastian had checked most of the room in the east wing, but came out empty-handed. Pieces of hair had fallen out from its slightly gelled state when he had checked the room, and were starting to cover Sebastian's eyes. He sighed as he combed back his fringe with his fingers. He walked out the recent room he checked and closed the door behind him silently. Sebastian took a look around before he crept down the hallway. He was about to declare his search fruitless when he accidentally kicked something. He cursed mentally and quickly hid. When he realized no one was coming to check the sound, he came out from his hiding spot to check what he had kicked. Sebastian was crouching down to examine the kicked-over clear glass bottle when he saw a something hidden behind the flower pot. Sebastian pushed away the flower pot to examine it. To the normal eye, they won't see it, but for Sebastian's trained eyes, he saw that there was a square shape that was slightly different in color compared to the rest of the wall. He reached out and gently pushed the square. There was a slight hissing sound as the square sunk into the wall. Then, at the same time, the wall behind Sebastian too had sunk and slid open.
Jackpot.
Sebastian pushed the flower pot back to its usual place before heading into the room. Behind him, the hidden door slid closed and became a normal wall again. The square spot, too, had resurfaced. Sebastian waited for his eyes to adjust to the darkness of the room before he went to search for a candelabrum. He found a pack of matches on the way and lit up the candles. He picked up the candelabrum and carried it with him on his journey to inspect the room. It was like an office or something. The room was arranged and was dustless. Bookshelf filled with ancient books lined the walls, and in front of the tinted window was the only messing thing in the room. The desk was piled with books and stray papers. Sebastian went over to the desk and placed the candelabrum on it. He then proceeded to pick up a book blindly. He opened it, and Sebastian barely caught the stray papers hidden in it before it reached the floor. He looked through the book, but there wasn't anything important in it, just some drawing of random peoples. He placed it back to its place, then another book beside it caught his eyes. The cover had a weird symbol on it. It was like a half-turned werewolf. He picked it up and flipped through the pages. This is it. He found it. The book was some kind of a daily report of the experiments Joseph said about last time. It was filled with the victim's identity, their pictures, and their background. From where he started reading until now, he found some similarities in all the victims. It was recorded that all of these victims, werewolves and vampires alike, are those who are destined to be mate to the other kind. He flipped to the last page and saw a note on a stray paper. He picked it and read through it. It said that the brought werewolves and vampires that are mostly destined to the other species for increasing the rate of conceiving a perfect hybrid child. But it also said that it was all failures. Then there were a few pictures of the failed hybrids. There were various kind ranging from a mindless beast to those that could actually be trained and listen to commands. He was reading through the book when another one caught his eyes. The symbol was the same, but it was in a lighter shade of blue compared to the marine one in his hands. He placed the book on top of other book and picked up the lighter shade one. He opened it, and he hit another jackpot. It was a book about the abilities of the malfunction hybrids. He quickly took out his phone and took pics of every page in those two books. When he was done, he placed the book back to its original place, in its original state. No stray papers were astray. He was about to leave when he noticed there was a drawer. He pulled it, but it was locked. He searched the table and found what he was looking for. He picked up the paperclip and bent it until it was somehow straight. He inserted it into the keyhole and jiggled it. After a few twists, turns, and a final jiggle, the drawer unlocked with a click. He pocketed the clip and opened the drawer. Inside wasn't some confidential stuff, but more like personal belongings. He picked up a diary of sort and looked through it. It was dated way back and it was written in another language. The diary was quite old, too. Considering the handwriting, it was probably written by a child. Then he saw a blank paper and went to pick it up. Turns out it wasn't a blank paper, but a photograph. He gasped when he saw the people in it. Side by side was a young King Eadric and a young version of his father. Beside his father was a young version of his mother, but instead of a young Queen Kiana beside King Eadric, it was a rather pale girl with silver hair and sapphire eyes. Just when he finished taking a picture of it, the monitor on the desk came to life. It showed several scenes, probably with the hidden cameras around the hidden room area. What caught his eyes were the bottom left box. It showed the blood-smelling lady Bethany talked about walking towards the room. Sebastian cursed and placed everything back into the drawer. He relocked it before escaping through the window. Just when he closed the window behind him, the hissing sound of the hidden door opened. Sebastian pocketed his phone before making his way down the walls. Prince Sakai led Bethany to the middle of the dance floor. They bowed and curtsied to each other and swayed to the live band that started. "So, Prince Sakai, you've been following me?" Bethany started.
So what if I am?
Prince Sakai raised one of his dark eyebrows.
Weren't you doing the same with Lady Analia?
"With good reasons," Bethany hastily added. Bethany looked straight into Prince Sakai's dark eyes. "You seem to know what's going on here." Prince Sakai's eyes looked panicked for a second before it was back to unreadable.
I've no idea what you're talking about.
He smiled. "You know what they're planning, don't you? You know about those wolfsbane and what they'll do with it," Bethany interrogated, not backing down. Prince Sakai looked unsure before he dipped Bethany.
What if I do?
He whispered into Bethany's ear. When they were upright again, Bethany looked at Prince Sakai blankly. "So, you're the mole?"
Oh?
Prince Sakai hummed. He twirled Bethany before continuing.
What makes you think that?
When their hands connected again, Bethany pressed the seal wax they found on the battlefield. Prince Sakai glanced at the wax seal and stiffened a little before relaxing.
Oh, and what is this? Did you steal it when you were rummaging through the castle?
Bethany huffed a laugh. "You and I both know clearly where I got this." They continued dancing for a while before Bethany spoke up again. "It's King Eadric, isn't it?"
What a father.
Prince Sakai seemed to snarl. "The father. He's the mole, isn't he?" Prince Sakai made no comment as they danced across the dance floor. From Bethany's view, she saw Prince Sakai kept looking to the right side of the room. She took a glance and realization slipped into her bones. "Sabina. He's threatening you, both you and your mother, with Sabina, isn't he?" She looked up at him. "So you two will obey to his commands." The sorrowful look he sent Bethany was all it takes to confirm it all. Slowly, the dance came to a halt, and they bowed and curtsied to each other again.
Thank you, Princess Bethany, for the lovely dance. I hope you got what you wanted.
Prince Sakai said before leaving without another glance or word. Just when Bethany reached the food table, Bethany's in-ear crackled to life.
It's all settled now. I've transferred the wolfsbane somewhere else, somewhere more safe.
Bethany sighed. "Got every last of them?" Bethany whispered.
Yep, even left a little note.
Joseph was cut off when he groaned in pain and there was a thump. "Joseph? Joseph!" Bethany whisper yelled into the mic attached to the in-ear. "He's out cold. Let's get him out before somebody finds out." There was an unfamiliar female voice said.
Yeah, hey, what's that?
Another voice said, deeper, male. Bethany heard the sound of the in-ear being touched.
It's an in-ear.
The male said to his companion before addressing Bethany.
Whoever is listening from the other end, no harm will come to little Joseph. In time, he will be returned.
With that, the in-ear was crushed. Bethany cursed.
What's wrong?
A voice said beside her. Bethany looked up and saw Sebastian's concerned eyes. "Joseph's been kidnapped."